Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask a Paranormal Investigator. My name is Matthew Baxter, and I'm here today to talk about a very interesting place, Silver Cliff Cemetery. Now, you see, Silver Cliff Cemetery is in Silver Cliff, Colorado, and it's actually there's two cemeteries that are right next to each other. One is a Catholic cemetery, and one is Silver Cliff Cemetery. And it's been said there's been miners that have walked to the cemetery at night, ghosts of miners walking this, and I don't mean underage, I mean people mining for silver. They would be walking the cemetery at night holding these lanterns that shined a blue flame, and it's just terrifying. You can go there today and see it for yourself. Even the ancient sign that's there, let's take a look at it. As you can see, this ancient sign says Silver Cliff Cemetery, founded in 1878, famous for ghost lights reported in National Geographic. So let's say I'm going to read to you what was in National Geographic, and that was in 1969. Okay. Eerie lights await explanation. I recall quite vividly the last such town I visited before leaving Colorado, a place called Silver Cliff in the Wet Mountain Valley west of Pueblo. Today it counts about 110 year-round residents, where once 5,000 lived. Be sure to get there after dark, a fellow camper from Kansas had told me, and drive out to the old cemetery. You'll see something mighty strange. We had bounced about a mile out of Silver Cliff across pitch black prairie when Bill Klein, who runs the local campground, told me to pull up and switch my headlights off. Do you believe it? I asked him. About the lights in the graveyard? Oh, I've seen them plenty of times. This is a good night for them. Overcast, no moon. So we climbed out beside the old burying ground, and for long minutes I strained to see something, anything. Slowly, vague outlines of grave markers emerged in ragged rows. There! Bill's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. And over there, I saw them too. Dim, round spots of blue light glowed ethereally among the graves. I found another and stepped forward for a better look. They vanished. For 15 minutes, we walked about the place, pursuing one will-o-wisp, then another. I aimed my flashlight at one eerie glow, switched it on. It revealed only a headstone. Colorado, the Rockies, pot of gold. Edward Linehan, National Geographic, August 1969. There's no real legend here in this, and it's also been said in many places that this was an investigation done by National Geographic, but it's basically just kind of a travel log. Now, so no investigation was done or anything like that. There's no history here either. So intrigued, Dr. Karen Stolzno and I, many years ago, went on a hunt for the lights of Silver Cliff Cemetery. So we packed up the car, drove down to Silver Cliff. It was quite a drive, and it was also winter time. So it was fairly cold, and the place was desolate. But we decided we were going to spend the night trying to find the truth about Silver Cliff. So as the night went on, we absolutely started to see some interesting things. It took a while, but we did see some things, some lights, I guess you could say, dancing around. Now, one of the key things is the lights only moved when you did. The lights only danced when you moved your head around. If you held your head still, they stayed still as well. Well, that was kind of peculiar. So looking a little bit closer, we did see that they appeared to be reflections off of the headstones, but we couldn't see any lights that would actually be causing the reflections. It's kind of peculiar, Didn't know what to say about that. But as you can see, there's definitely some shininess to many of these headstones. And there's also a lot of blue. But here's the most important thing. See back here? There's a town. There's a town right there. And there are street lights. There's lights in the houses, the buildings. Maybe that's it. Well, we weren't sure. We were cold. None of our footage really came out to show anything. It was frustrating. And we thought we have to go hunting for the history of this, because if we can show that there were lights being dancing around in this graveyard, kind of back before electric lights were a big thing in this town, we might have something. Back in Denver, we marched off one very cold, snowy morning. It was in the middle of a blizzard, to the History Colorado Museum in Denver, Colorado. and we wanted to see what we could find. Luckily, in the basement, they had a lot of microfiche. You could actually go and take a look and see how far back we could actually find information on this tale, this legend. So we sat at these old machines, Karen and I, and we looked and looked and looked. And I did find one thing that was a little older than National Geographic. I found a story in the New York Times published in 1967 talking about hunting ghosts in a ghost town out west. Now they're calling Silver Cliff a ghost town at this point, which is interesting. And they're basically saying that there are these dancing lights. It says the United States Census of 1880 listed 5,087 persons, exceeding the state only by Denver and Leadville. So it was a pretty bustling place. So today, Silver Cliff is much smaller. So here in this barely visible picture, you can see it says ghostly lights flicker atop old tombstones in Silver Cliff, Colorado. So it's interesting as you read, it says, the old town members think that it's the belief that the reflections from the ranch lights in the valley are responsible for the mysterious flames. Legends say that the dancing lights were first seen in the pre-dawn hours of a bitter winter in 1880. A small group of miners was returning to Silver Cliff after a rip-roaring holiday party in the nearby mining town of Rosita. So they were drunk, that says here. And they went past the cemetery, and one of the miners stopped, grasped the arm of a companion, and pointed to the burial ground. There, flickering on the carved surface of a freshly raised tombstone, was a blue flame. The miners stared with fascination a very short while, and with less stagger and more speed, headed quickly for nearby Silver Cliff. Now, August Menzel, the Custer County judge, was a native of Wet Mountain Valley, and he continues the story here in 1967, passed on to him by some early settlers. So it's impressive that 80 years later, he's getting this passed on. Now, basically, these guys were pretty much worse for wear. They insisted it was true. Some friends accompanied them to the cemetery a few nights later, also properly fortified to give them courage. So they were drunk as well. Sure enough, there were lights. So succeeding generations of Custer County residents and tourists have seen and pondered over the phenomenon. Some say it's nothing more than the reflection of ordinary house lights from throughout the valley playing over the gravestones. But Judge Menzel is not so sure. He says, one night, everybody in Silver Cliff and West Cliff shut off their lights at the same time. This included the street lights, but that did not affect the grave lights. They were still there, and a lot of us saw them. Okay. Hold on a minute. This doesn't make sense. So somehow they're going to organize two towns to turn off all of their lights at a particular time. They're going to turn off all of the city lights in both of these towns. And for a certain amount of time, they're going to do this. And it was successful, and they still saw the lights. So how is it that this was organized? Did they go door to door and ask everyone to do it? It seems to me like publishing it in a newspaper would have been a way to make this happen. But there's no story about this town doing this, these two towns. There's no story about it anywhere. So I don't know that I believe this judge, but we kept digging. I mean, we knew that if these settlers were telling these stories, that it had to be somewhere. The first mention of the Silver Cliff Cemetery ghost lights had to be mentioned somewhere. And that Wet Mountain Tribune goes back quite a few years. There at the microfiche in the basement of the History Colorado Museum, we sat, Karen and I, digging for something. And then I hear this sort of outburst from Dr. Karen. The look of excitement on her face was amazing. And I ran over there, the Wet Mountain Tribune, Friday, April 13th, 1956. Silver Cliff Cemetery ghosts carrying own lights at night. So, as I look through this, the earliest mention of the Silver Cliff Cemetery lights, and nobody else has mentioned this article at this point, because this was about a decade ago. I look here and I see in the article no mention of this legend. It seems like the legend would have been mentioned if it was so well known. This is the very first mention of anything having to do with it. And what it was some teenagers driving out, a couple of guys, a couple of girls driving out past the cemetery when they saw the lights in the cemetery. Scared the girls very badly. And it was very entertaining, apparently, for the boys. But when they went out and checked it out, it appeared to be lights reflecting off of the headstones. So it was very exciting to know that Karen was the first investigator to dig up the truth on this story, that it was teenagers in 1956, because immediately after this, the amount of people driving out there to the cemetery to try to see these lights was staggering. Word had traveled so quickly about the fact that there's these haunted lights out there that it was attracting people like crazy immediately after this incident, not before this incident. So with this came the legends, the urban legends about the miners as they were trying to figure out what could be causing this. And it's a very, very fun tale. And it is a very amazingly beautiful cemetery. Now, of course, out there you see blue reflectors these days. They have all kinds of little blue flowers and things like that that may or may not add to the effect. But there's been lots of thoughts about decaying wood causing phosphorescence or a bioluminescence from even some sort of insects, things like that. The fact that you can't see this until it gets really dark. Once it starts to get dark and your eyes have to start straining because, oh, it's dark out there, then you get a little bit of what's called prisoner cinema. Let's just say that there's a shift to the blue side of the spectrum when you're in that kind of darkness and your eyes are really struggling to find some sort of light. So Karen went on to write about this in her book, Haunting America. I highly recommend it. You can get the full story. And any other investigator that claims that they found this story by going through the microfiche themselves, they didn't. Dr. Karen Stolzno was the first to put all of the facts together on this. And it's very exciting for me to be a part of it, to be able to claim that I was there when. And that's it for this episode of Ask a Paranormal Investigator. Please like and subscribe and comment below, and we'll see you next time.